Happy Tuesday afternoon. It's time for Coffee with Kristin and Tina. Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee with Kristin and Tina. We're your hosts. This is Kristin Odell of Grow with KLO. I'm Tina Prigge of Vagabond Creative Studio. A big thank you to Just Orthodontics for sponsoring our show today. Kristin, so happy to see you.
This is kind of weird, the lunchtime thing.
The lunchtime thing. So did you eat lunch before we did this, or are you going to eat lunch after?
So I'm actually going to eat after. I had a giant overnight oats this morning. And then I had a meeting at Jen's Java here in town, and I had a coffee there. And so I got home and I wasn't quite hungry yet. So we're going to do the show. I do have a lemon seltzer in my cup today.
Ooh.
What are you drinking today?
I am drinking straight up water.
Good for you.
I feel like I've been talking a lot and my voice is just a little kind of crunchy. And I was at Jen's Java for a meeting this morning as well. And that big cup of delicious coffee really just filled me up.
So what did you have regular coffee, flavored coffee? Did you have something special?
Nope, just a regular coffee with cream and raw sugar.
That sounds good.
I know.
I had some of that at home, but then when I got there, it's kind of damp and cold out. And I'm like, I deserve a fancy coffee today. So then I had an almond milk latte with some sugar-free hazelnut in it.
Oh, wow.
Which was delicious.
And did it warm you up?
Yeah. How could it not? It's just it wasn't a mug like this. It was like a ceramic mug that was nice and warm, but wrapping your hands around. Ooh.
Yeah. When they handed me the mug this morning, it must have maybe just come out of the dishwasher or something, or they had it warmed in some way because even the handle was warm. So it was just, especially because according to this chart, the 11 seasons of Wisconsin, I'm thinking we're in third winter at this point. What do you think, Kristin?
We are definitely in a spring of deception.
I mean, I think the spring of deception is when it got warm 2 weeks ago and we got out the motorcycles and,
Yeah, when it was
coat away.
Do you guys remember when it was 80? Definitely. I don't know if we haven't really had mud, but it snowed on and off all day yesterday, and that doesn't feel fair.
It doesn't feel fair, especially for May 1st. May 1st, we always say Mayday, and I took it as Mayday, help, we're going down. We've got all this snow.
I was reflecting back yesterday. I was thinking about the beginning of the softball season last year, because somebody yesterday was saying oh, it's so horrible this year. And I had flashbacks to softball last year, and we had week after week after week of practice canceled last year because it was raining and cold.
Yeah.
So I just am reminding you that it was like this last year, maybe not the snow, but it was super rainy and yucky in May last year.
Do you think in this region, we just kind of have seasonal weather amnesia? We tell ourselves, spring starts in April, and then we're just ready for this weather that never really delivers, but we always expect that it's going to.
Yeah, it does seem like summer takes a little bit longer to come now. We're well into June sometimes before it really feels like summer.
Yeah, true.
So, and as somebody who enjoys the sun and the warmth, waiting until mid-June for that is not acceptable.
And it's especially cruel when we get that warm snap. So it was 80 degrees, right? So I'll put the boots away, put the winter coats away. Once I shift into that warm weather kind of mode, it's hard to come back to today and yesterday.
I had to wear my winter coat yesterday, and I was not thrilled. It's stuffy and bulky, and it didn't feel good.
But what's the forecast? Is this weekend going to be nice, do you think?
I don't think it's supposed to be nice here. So I'm headed to Kentucky this weekend for the Kentucky Derby, and it's supposed to be high 60s and low 70s there.
In Kentucky.
So I might come back glowing if I get a couple of days of warmth, but we will talk about all of that next week, and I promise I'll bring pictures.
Yes, I cannot wait to see a picture of you with your fascinator.
Fascinator.
It's going to be fascinating. You know what, Kristin? We have been doing this for at least 3 years. This popped up in my memories on Facebook, and it was from April 13th of 2020.
That is crazy. Look at, we haven't changed at all. I look just like her.
I think I was just wearing my winter hat that looks exactly like that today. So,
Okay, so it says in the description that we will share tips and tricks for staying sane in these chaotic times. So, what tip or trick do you have for staying sane in this week?
ooh, a tip or trick for staying sane while it's this cold. Well,
It could be for anything. It doesn't have to just be related to the weather. It's your call.
yeah, I think treating yourself to a nice warm beverage of choice, whether it's a tea or a hot chocolate or a coffee, is kind of delightful, right? If you have a wood burning fireplace or a stove or even a gas powered fireplace, like treat yourself, turn it on, enjoy the fire. What about you? What kind of tips, tricks?
I was thinking about last weekend we were supposed to camp, our first camping weekend of the season, and the weather was Friday was beautiful. The rest of the weekend was horrible, rainy and cold. So we canceled our reservation. That meant we had Saturday like at home all day. And I started my day by sleeping in a little bit, which was like 7 a.m. And then my darling husband brought me a cup of coffee in bed, which again, winning. I'm winning already.
Right.
But I like took a half an hour and just read in bed on Saturday morning, which I won't say I never do, but it's pretty rare. And that I felt so sneaky. Like I felt like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally sneaking and doing it, like getting this reading in. It was very relaxing. So
That's an awesome thing to do. And the girls gave you your space, or were they not up yet?
I don't remember if they were up, but I mean, like they just get up and turn the TV on or do whatever. So
Yeah.
it's like it wasn't a big deal, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. It's true. Sometimes when it's like rainy or it gets nasty again, it is delightful to treat yourself like, well, I can't really do anything outside, so I'm just tucking in under these blankets to a good book.
Yeah. And I kind of was like, I have all day. We have like a fairly unplanned day at this point. So if I take 30 minutes to read a book, like it's not a big deal. It was nice.
When you go camping, do you have time to read?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes we sit in the lawn chair and read outside. I always read before bed, but when we camp, I definitely make sure that like I bring my Kindle because then it's backlit. And if Doug wants to go to bed, then I can read laying
Nice.
in bed. So
Oh, that's nice.
camping
Hey,
is one of those things that I just try. I try to read more when we are on vacation or camping.
are you reading just personally enjoyable books? Maybe it's fiction, or are you reading like business oriented kind of support growth books?
I have two that I am reading right now. So I'm reading a book by Colleen Hoover called Never Never, which she wrote a 2-book series called It Starts With Us and It Ends With Us. And I read those first and I enjoyed them. They were quick reads. And I walked into the library last week with Nora and her book was like on the new titles stand, this Never Never one. And I'm like, I know the author. I'm just going to grab it. So literally I picked it in 3 seconds.
That's fun.
Yeah. And it's been pretty good. So I'm reading that. And then I just picked up, it is a new version of the New Testament, and it was written in Indigenous people's language choice and with their creation story in mind. So the First Nations Council wrote a Bible version for North American Indigenous people.
So have you started reading it? And like, what are some of the things that are presented differently or?
I've just read the first couple of pages. I'm going to take it with me. But instead of like, let's say it talking about like God or Jesus Christ, it's like the creator and the chosen one. And so it just, again, takes into account like the reliance on Mother Nature and the animal stories. And I'm super intrigued about it. And because it's just like a totally different language. Indigenous people rely on storytelling. So it very much is like flowy in the storytelling way. I'll let you know.
Yeah, super interesting. That's a really interesting take.
Yeah. So I'm kind of
And
excited about it.
it's great to be introduced to and have a deeper appreciation for some of those indigenous stories, right? To hear it in their
Absolutely.
voice. I love that.
Well, and where we live, like this this was all First Nation, like this was all land, right? So yeah, I'm curious about it. I'm excited because I think creative, like reading the Bible is hard. So I think in this way, in a more storytelling model, like I'm curious to see if more things click into place for me because I'm hearing it a different way.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to hear your assessment on that. That's so
Yeah.
interesting, Kristin.
So it has lots of thin page. It's a little book, but it has lots of thin pages, so it might take me a while, but I'll keep you posted. How about you?
Yeah, I'm actually listening to two audiobooks. One is called Lost in China, but let me just pull up. Mary commented, she said, one of my favorite books is The Other Boleyn Girl. It's about Mary Boleyn, the sister of Anne Boleyn, who is one of the wives of Henry VIII. Mary, I read that book. I totally agree. That is a good read.
Ooh, that's good to know. I might have to download that one on my Kindle before I leave.
What's interesting about it is it's historical fiction,
Mhm.
right? So you're like learning about these real characters, these real people, but what's imagined is the actual conversations and what happens around them. But
Right.
it's fascinating to think of what life was like back in 1500s, right? Not only for women, but just the whole like monarchical structure and stuff like
Right.
that. And I'm always thankful when I read it. I think, thank God I wasn't born in that day and age.
Right. Right. Okay. Two books on audio. They are
Yeah. So one is called Lost in China. It's by Martin, I think Troost is his last name. And it's just this delightful narrative about all of this time. He's a writer, right? So this experience in China and like dealing with the pollution and dealing with, being a foreigner and always being charged like the foreigner price and having to get comfortable with haggling and, taking transportation and what chaos and madness it is anytime you have to try and line up or like buying a train ticket that says you've got a specific seat but five other people have that same seat number, just like all of this like mayhem and it's just super interesting and really well told. And again, we're so lucky that we live here.
cool. Okay.
So that's one. And then the other one that I'm about to start listening to is called The Climb. So I love books about mountaineers, people that are like summiting Everest, summiting Annapurna, summiting K2. I don't know why. It's not something I would ever do, right? I trekked once to the elevation of Everest Base Camp at
Yeah.
18,000 feet, which was amazing. But the thought of going any further or the thought of doing it in extreme bitter cold and like, so often in these stories, because they're at high altitude and there's reduced oxygen, they'll take off their gloves to do something and like set them down and it'll blow away. And like, you can't have your fingers exposed at like minus 30 degrees Celsius, right? Like, it is just fascinating. I'm fascinated by these stories.
When did you climb to the base camp of Mount Everest?
1998.
And what, like, were you there? Was that your sole mission? Tell us about it.
Okay, so a couple of girlfriends that I had taught in Japan with were going to be traveling in Southeast Asia. They were going to leave Japan, go through Korea, Mongolia, and end up in Nepal. And I said, cool, I'll meet you, but I'm going to go home first. So I'll just catch up with you in Kathmandu, Nepal. So we caught up and we went whitewater rafting, we went kayaking. They're like, great, next we're going to go on a trek. I'm like, okay. They're like, yeah, we're going to Everest Base Camp. I was like, what? So fortunately, Kathmandu has all sorts of shops where you can get the gear and the warm coats and all that stuff that you need. And so we took a bus to the terminus, like as far as it would go, and got out and started walking. And it took us 27 days. And we made it, and it was amazing. It was cold, but it was just so rewarding.
Do you have like guides? Like, how does one survive for 27 days?
Okay, so first of all, you want to take as little stuff as you can because every little like gram, every little ounce matters. So like we cut the tags out of our clothes. I remember, my toothbrush cutting off the handle. So it was just, like My hairbrush had no handle. It was just handheld. You want the least amount of weight possible because it all has an impact. And then luckily there are guest houses along the way. So there's places to stay and there's places to get food, but you're eating completely local. So most of the weight in your backpack is like power bars and Snickers. And
Did they have power bars in what year did you say it was? 1998?
yeah, they did. I think they were kind of new at that point.
I feel like we eat power bars all the time now.
Yeah, and Snickers, wow, Snickers were sometimes just the perfect thing to like get you over the next ridge.
I mean, I think Snickers should always be considered a power bar. Okay, what was the worst part of it?
The worst part, the cold at night, right? So like the higher you got, the colder you get. And there were some nights where I had my big puffy like down jacket and all of my clothes on and my sleeping bag and my hat, right? And still shivering and trying to go to sleep. And then also at elevation, just the will to go on, like taking a step and stopping to breathe and being like, okay, come on, one more step, let's go. So it really like, took, some days at elevation, you'd go 400 feet and that was it because it was.
Yes. Amazing. Okay, what was the best part?
The best part was doing it. Like when I first set out, I was like, I don't think I can, there were days like, especially early on, I'm like, maybe a helicopter will come and just pluck me off this mountainside.
Somebody save me. What if I agreed to?
I know, right? But as it went on, it got better and better. And just the views were incredible. The views from like that top of the world, there's nothing like it. And the stars at night, holy smokes, we've completely lost the ability to see that here, right? When we look up, there's a smattering, but like there were so many stars, it was almost like they were on top of you.
Yes, I have had that experience where like you can actually see the Milky Way, right? Like in Manitowoc, we don't, maybe out in the county, but
yeah, because there was zero light pollution. The other dangerous thing for me is that I'm not used to mountain life, right? So you have to be careful because there's ledges and cliffs and things everywhere. So one night I went out and I was just going to step outside and brush my teeth. And I looked up and there were so many stars. I started brushing my teeth and like just wandering around like, oh my God, right? I was like awestruck. And then I fell off the mountainside.
So that does actually happen. That's like cartoons.
Dude, it was totally like a cartoon. And luckily I grabbed onto something and I was like started calling for like the other travelers. I'm like, help, somebody. And all of a sudden these little like their heads with their headlamps came over the side of the cliff looking down. And I like looked and it just kept going and going and going. I'm like, oh my God. So fortunately they helped me up. Luckily I was able to reclaim my boot that had flew off. I still had my toothbrush miraculously.
That is crazy. So once you go up, how long does it take you to get down?
So on the way back, we walked 3 days and then there's a village, I guess, and it's called Lukla. And Lukla has a helicopter service. So we just took the helicopter service back, which some people do on arrival. But what's dangerous about that is then you're not acclimatizing your body as you go up through the altitude. Sure. And so you're at risk of more forms of altitude sickness.
Yeah, altitude sickness. Oh my gosh. You guys, Tina is so well traveled. I'm just always amazed. Like Tina Prigge that lives in our town has done this adventure. Did you guys know that? It's amazing.
Another thing I learned, and thank you for saying that. So there are Sherpas that are like traveling the same trails and they might be moving things from like village to village, or, some people hire Sherpas to take extra gear for them. And they don't just go straight up like this on a path, right? That's the hardest thing to do. So they'll like zigzag. So there's like more flat spaces. So it's easier. Mm-hmm. And I found that really helps. And I use that a lot if I'm ever like on an incline.
Yeah. I mean, I've done enough hiking in different places that I've had that experience of.
Thanks, Mary.
Doing some horizontal climbing is so much easier than going up vertically.
Yeah. And what's interesting is going down is as challenging as going up because you're like using different parts of your body. And
Yes.
I never would have thought that, you know, it always seemed like easy to go down, but it's not necessarily the case.
Yes. I had that experience in Arizona. We did a black diamond climb a couple of years ago. And first of all, I did get winded going up. I had actually stopped. I had started wheezing, which I'm like, I'm in good shape. Why is this happening to me? But it is like it was an elevation and heat combination for me that got me. But there were some really big steps going up or climbs up. And then when we came back down, it was like, I have to have really good footing going down because you can lose your footing and slip down really fairly easily if you're not paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't want to run into any tragedies like that when you're
Right.
in a situation like that.
Right.
I think the secret is to give yourself the time, to just allow yourself however long it takes. If it takes 5 minutes to take one step, that's what it takes.
Yep. Yeah, for real. Well, and you have to, I don't know if you've had experience, but when I've done hiking or climbing, like I'm constantly looking down for footing, whether it's rocks or roots or whatever to make sure that my footing is good. But then you don't get to take in Arizona, there were like these beautiful mountain ranges we could see forever, but we were looking down a lot. So we have to, it's good to be intentional and pause as you're going up, right?
Yeah, right. You don't want to miss the whole point of why you're doing it in the first place, right?
Yep.
It's just being immersed in that incredible beauty.
Right. I had the same experience in Denver in like the Garden of the Gods and stuff like that, right? You're like walking around and it's just so amazing, but you have to like pause and just sit and like look at where I am.
And one thing I love that's different, so, the sunrise here over the lake is incredible and really unsurpassed. Except if you're in the mountains, those sunrises are super unique and interesting too. And what's different is oftentimes the peak will get the sun first and it might take longer. The bulk of the mountain might be blocking the rest of it.
Right. Yeah, you kind of get the glow around the outside of the mountain, right?
Yeah. Mary said, someday I want to climb a mountain. I hope you do, Mary. I hope you do.
Right.
If I can do it, believe in yourself. You can do it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Smoky Mountains were amazing. We did hiking in the Smoky Mountains, and there's just so many, even just in the US, there's so many incredible places to go and take in hiking like that and have those experiences.
Yeah. 2 other books I've read. There was a guy and a companion that hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. Mm-hmm. Fascinating to listen to that. And then a woman had hiked the Pacific Coast Trail. Super fascinating. Like a part of me is like, I want to do that. And a part of me is like, oh my God, no.
So I don't think we've ever talked about this. I read the book. There was a plane crash and there were big mountains. I know this is not helpful. I got to look it up. It's some, like, most people don't survive in these places. And there was a plane crash and these guys fell onto this mountain where people would climb, and they lived for like 75 days until somebody came to save them. And I can't think of what it's called, but I will find it.
Yeah.
And total survival story, but they basically talk about how did they survive? They only had what was on the plane. So it's hard to read sometimes, but really, really interesting.
Is that based on a true story?
No, it's entirely true. It's entirely true. Like the guy had to hold on to the frame of the airplane to survive, like it crashing.
Oh, that's awful.
His hands were like frozen to the door frame. Alive. I gotta look it up.
Mary's suggesting that maybe it was called Alive. That kind of sounds familiar. Mary, have you read Alive?
Yes. It's the Andes Mountains. It's an Andes Mountain story.
Excellent.
Yes.
Raisa said, excellent book on Grandma Gatewood, who walked 14,000 miles in her life in the U.S. on national trails starting in her 60s. What? That's inspiring. Thank you. That's exactly the type of book I would love to read. I'm going to check it out.
That's cool. That makes me think of Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Well, and it's so inspiring, right? That she started in her 60s and accomplished that.
Right. We got so much time to do cool things.
Right. We're not done yet.
we are not done yet.
I also read a book, and I cannot remember what it was called, but it was about a woman who rode her bike. Like she started in London and, went through like Turkey and Iran and kept going and then rode it up into the Himalayas.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I can't imagine. Just thinking about the supplies you would need, right? Because if you're riding your bike through all those terrains, you're
Right.
going to have inner tubes and tools, and like so much could go wrong. But it was just fascinating. I love kind of living vicariously.
With her, or did she just find things along the way?
I think she started with some, right? But then inevitably you have to find some along the way.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So cool.
Humans are amazing.
Indeed. Indeed. Well, I have something to show you. This is not nearly as exciting as climbing mountains or riding your bike across Europe or the Middle East, but I visited my friend Katie Shamburik. Katie owns Glaze and Paint in Manitowoc. It's right downtown. And she had all these new signs in. So this comes in pieces, and I got to paint it whatever color I wanted and put it together. Isn't it like the cutest thing?
It is so cute. Okay, so break it down. So like, are the trees?
It's laser cut. You can't. Well, maybe here you can
Oh,
see how that's like
yeah,
a wood.
yeah.
So like this tree part was separate from this, and the white is raised. All these little things, even like the little hearts, like in my kit, the little hearts were cut out, all these things. And then you pick your paint, and you obviously there's a layout, but like I chose to have my words like this, my camper on this side. And isn't
I
it
love it.
adorable?
It's so cute. So I think my favorite is the little heart doorknob.
I know.
Okay, so will you hang it in your camper?
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're totally gonna hang it in the camper. I just have to get a little like black and white gingham ribbon for this, and then yeah, we're gonna hang in the camper. If anybody has a Cricut, message me. I'm trying to find somebody who can make me a little vinyl that says Odell's for the camper. Isn't it so cute?
That is awesome.
Guys, the girls they were off of school last Friday, and so that was like their only request is we haven't been to Glaze and Paint in forever. We want to go. And we went over there. They did such cute projects, but I didn't plan on doing a project there. And then I saw it and I'm like, I'm totally going to do this. And she has like all different designs. So you could make one for your front door or, you know.
Fun. So like tell people how that works at Glaze and Paint. Like, did you have to make a reservation? Is it only on certain times? Is it?
We just walked in the afternoon on Friday. There were tables open. We walked around, there's like all you can do canvases or wood projects or, porcelain projects or whatever. And so we all walked around and picked our project. You can do a birdhouse. And then if there was any special instructions with what we were doing, she gave us our special instructions, and then you get to pick your paint colors. So she got us all set up with supplies, and we totally just hung out and like painted. It was relaxing for me, but the end product is so cute.
Yeah, what a cool thing to do as a family. How long did it take you from start to finish to make that cool thing?
Question. Maybe like an hour and a half.
Okay.
I kind of putzed with it a little bit more. It took me a little while, right? I'm not a naturally creative person, so I needed to decide about like color scheme, and like the inside of our camper is white and gray, so I was just trying to think about like, well, what will look good inside, and so it took me a little while to get set up, but it turned out so cute. It was really fun. And I think it's like we had 4 projects. 2 of the girls did canvas. Nora did a painting piece that'll get a pottery piece that'll get fired. And then I did my sign. And I think our total was like $80 or $90.
Oh, wow.
So for 4 projects, I don't feel like that is too bad.
Yeah.
So if you're kind of wondering like, well, is it expensive? I felt like that was very reasonable since there were 4 of us.
Right. And it wasn't like there was pressure on the timeline, like, okay, you've got 30 minutes, go out. Yeah.
Not at all. And you can do parties there. Like she hosts birthday parties or like women's events, or I saw Mary said that her department at work is going in June. Like you can do events there. So it's kind of a neat idea.
I love it. Mary, after your department goes, you'll have to share some pictures. That would be really fun to see.
Right?
And then Mary also mentioned that she read a book called Stolen Silence. I'm
Mm.
not familiar with that book, but if there's anything more you can tell us, Mary. First of all, did you like it? Would you recommend it?
Cool beans.
Yeah. Wow, Kristin, this has been so fun. What a great lunch conversation.
Time flies. Did you eat lunch before?
I was just working on a little yogurt.
Ooh, the old yogurt on the go trick, huh? I love it.
Sometimes if I eat too big of a meal midday, I get a little too tired too fast. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes I like to just eat lightly so that my energy stays up,
Yes.
which in a way is counterintuitive, but that big full belly makes me want to nap.
I get it. I think I have grilled or I roasted chicken breast. I think I'm gonna have a wrap with some chicken breast in it.
Ah,
I think
yum,
that's what's gonna be on my menu after this.
yum. Cool. Fun times. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for watching Coffee with Kristin and Tina. We had a great time with you. Thank you for participating. We'd love to hear any of your feedback on the topics we've talked about, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.
Woohoo! Have a great
Kristin,
week, everybody.
enjoy the Kentucky Derby.
I will. I
Okay.
can't wait.
See you next time. Thanks for watching.